really like an elevation of the human. I would personally feel more comfortable talking to a machine about that rather than a person. I think it's a little bit easier for me to be honest. It's a little bit easier for me to like actually say what's going on. And so that's an element that might play into it as well. People say I'm kind of glad I'm speaking to a machine.
Businesses need this to help with their call center because they don't have humans to answer the phone. And if they do, it might be 3 hours before someone can answer a customer's call that needs help.
It's really taking what humans are good at, empathy, creativity, building relationships with a caller, and allowing that agent to not just have to churn through as many tickets as they can in an hour and trying to get you off the phone. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Benjamin Gleitzman. I'm a CTO and co-founder here at Replicant. So we're a contact center automation platform, and we help with customer service. So no more waiting 2 hours on hold to speak to a person. My background is artificial intelligence and machine learning, but I've also been kind of an executive sponsor on some of our largest deals. So I've seen everything from like the ideation of something you want to create, a call flow you want to automate with AI, all the way through, development and deployment. But I got my start back in West Virginia. I grew up in Morgantown, and I was very interested in robotics. I thought that was going to be the sort of future of what I went into. And of course, Carnegie Mellon is still a powerhouse when it comes to, robotics technology. And so, that got me a little bit interested in what will that AI be like in the future? What will robotics look like? This was me thinking, back in 2002, 2003, what will that look like? And I got a really fantastic opportunity to go on an exchange program to Japan when I was a kid. It's through the Rotary program. And so they trade kids all over the world. I went to Japan, maybe a Japanese student goes to France, someone from France goes to Guatemala, and lived with a couple host families. I didn't really speak any Japanese, but I could tell already that they were living in the future. It wasn't quite the future that, we've inhabited today, but even back then, 20 years ago, it just, people were watching TV on their cell phones in 2003, and that was really fantastic. So I got a job there after I'd spent about a year living with host families at a company called Advanced Telecommunications Research. And it's a little bit like the IBM of Japan, and it's in this bamboo forest. It's really beautiful. There's deer running all around, and it's great. But the president of that company had created an android humanoid version of himself. And when he would leave and go on trips, he would leave this like robot copy of himself in his office. And it would move and it would look around, and it was pretty indistinguishable from a person. At least if you were walking by the door, you couldn't quite tell, that it was him. But as soon as it opened its mouth, you could tell that it was fake because the voice synthesis was just not there, 20 years ago. And so at that time, I thought, I wonder how long it'll take until we're really good, the quality of the voice, the accuracy, the latency on this kind of voice technology. And so that was really my first foray into thinking about what this AI might look like in the future.
Awesome. And that was a long time ago. So in terms of technology, at least.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of revisions. I mean, it's kind of come a long way. I think, when I had started this company with my co-founders, we never had a very good conversation with a machine. And this was back in 2016, 2017. We said, why is this? Everybody's got Siri in their pocket. They've got Google Voice in their home. It's just not working. I think there's some missing piece as to why we're not having these great conversations with machines. And that's really what we set out to do, is to craft great conversations and get this partnership between the technology that's necessary in order to make this work, but also the human aspect. How do you get linguists and conversational experts and really a whole host of people around the table, because they're necessary to craft these great conversations?
Benjamin, I want to get into a little bit of the technology, but before we do that, what's it look like from the consumer side when somebody wants to use your technology? Walk me through that experience. How do I work it?
Yeah, it's I think we've all had the bad experience. We've all had that, I've got something wrong. I want to change my flight. I call in, I got to wait, 30, 45. I think when, some of these flight outages were happening due to COVID, you're getting, 3-hour hold time, 4-hour hold time to be able to speak with a person. So we've all got those stories of the bad experience. But in our earliest days, we did a lot with food ordering. This was kind of like an early breakthrough for us. We worked closely with DoorDash. We worked closely with Postmates. When you order from those restaurants, they don't always have an iPad that's there in the restaurant. They've got these partner merchants. They're kind of calling in orders on your behalf. And so you order your double cheeseburger, but there's a small army of people in contact centers that are phoning in those, those food orders. And you can imagine, it's long days. It's very repetitive. It's pretty easy to make mistakes because you're just calling in, food orders all day. And so our kind of earliest application of the thinking machine, that's what we call the technology, the automation that we create, was, can we call the Italian restaurant down the block and order with someone who's perhaps got a strong accent? They're in a rush, and so you can't kind of cover up the latency with any of those click-clack typing noise or doing anything like that. And it's got to be accurate. You've got to be calling in these orders correctly. And so that's, I think, one of the earliest ways that people might have experienced that was like getting these calls from machines. And as we talked to the people who are on the other side who are taking these calls in the restaurants, they said, we love it. It always runs the call in the same way. There's no chit chat. I can just get right to the point. I can get in, I can get out, and kind of get exactly what I need. So that's an example of like maybe an outbound phone calling experience that it's not spammy. I think that's the other key here, is that we didn't set out to robocall people. We didn't set out to, create more of these unwanted calls in the world. We're looking to find places where there is an inefficiency and create some resolution there. So maybe for you and me, if your car breaks down and you call many of the AAA auto clubs, if you're in Canada and you call the CAA auto clubs, you'll be getting Replicant. And so what that means is the call is answered immediately. There's no hold time. Our calls are usually shorter. It's about 35, maybe 40% shorter than having to speak with a person. And you can do a lot of fantastic things with the technology. You might be, let's say I'm driving from here, I live in Oregon today, let's say I'm driving to Washington. I might break down on the highway, it's the middle of the night, I don't even know if I'm in Oregon or in Washington. And so being able to not only get that answer immediately, know that I'm going to be safe, but use some other functionality of the telephone. Hey, can I send you a link, open that up, get the GPS coordinates from the phone? Hey, can you snap a picture of the tire? We can see if there's going to be tire damage. So that's how maybe consumers would interact with it. But we also take it a step further. And so once we've realized, hey, it's Benjamin, he's on the side of the road, he's going to need a tow truck, we then use the thinking machine to simultaneously call outbound to all the different tire shops. Hey, I got Benjamin. Can you go pick him up? Oh, no, we're closed right now. Hey, can you go, Benjamin, pick him up? Yeah, we got some time. We should be there in about 20 minutes. And so you get kind of this almost a Rube Goldberg machine of connecting the inbound phone call to a series of outbound phone calls to then perhaps another phone call back to the person who's on the side of the road to let them know that the tow truck is on their way, or even let them know if there's going to be a delay in sending someone out to them.
Very cool. Awesome. It sounds like you're in Canada. It's pretty big there right now.
Yeah, we're in North America, Canada. We also just launched in the EU. And so, we're working with some customers who are in the UK, just got our GDPR certification. So that's a really kind of great testament for the technology and being able to unlock a bunch of different areas where languages really matter. I think Replicant works in something like 35 different languages, and that's kind of it's a native usage in that language. So it's not as if we're listening in French and then translating that to English and inferring on it in English and then translating it back into French. It's the machine learning models, the transformers, work in that native language.
So basically, you're selling to businesses, small businesses, large businesses, any kind of business that would need this to help with their call center because they don't have humans to answer the phone. And if they do, like you said, it might be 3 hours before someone can answer a customer's call that needs help. Is that sort of true right there? Yeah,
it's for the enterprise. And so, we're looking for people who've got these larger contact centers. But I worked a contact center when I was in college. That was how I helped pay for it. And I loved when I got those interesting calls, when I got a weird question, when I got something that requires research that I really had to dig in and like use my empathy or use my creativity as a human to answer that call. The 17th password reset of the day was just not what I was looking for when it came for, having a kind of, a job that I really cared about doing. And so what we've heard from agents who are in the contact center is, hey, Replicant takes all the minutia. They do all the, I've identified the person who's calling. I've authenticated them so I know that they are who they say they are. I've ideally tried to resolve their problem end to end, but maybe they've got one extra question. I changed my flight, I picked my seat, I checked my bags, but then I got a question about COVID policies. And so maybe you don't want the machine answering that because they might change from time to time. So we're going to escalate that to the agent, but they're going to get that warm transfer. It's like, hey, Benjamin's on the line. He's already done these things. He's just got a quick question here about COVID. And so you can kind of be in and out on that call in 30 seconds, where previously it was a 45-minute hold time. And then the thing that I hate, re-authenticating people, I get passed from person to person to person, and they have to keep asking me who I am. I mean, it's
so annoying.
It's a real annoying customer experience. And so that kind of, it's really like an elevation of the human in the contact center. I mean, we do it with a lot of technology and we do it with a lot of machines, but it's really taking what humans are good at, empathy, creativity, building relationships with a caller, and allowing that agent to not just have to churn through as many tickets as they can in an hour and trying to get you off the phone.
So it's like, part of it is probably the call center. People working at call centers might be scared because their jobs might be taken, but at the same token, it might elevate their position so it's more meaningful for them to answer the phones, because they don't have to deal with all these minutia calls about password resets, things like that. They can try to solve something that's a little bit more complex and fulfilling on their end.
Yes. And I think it's a great question to ask, like, where and how is this going to take jobs? Or as I see it, it's really taking tasks away from people. There's a lot of attrition that goes on in contact centers. I've worked with some of our partners who have, 7 months of retention is about all you get from a person in a contact center. It's a difficult job. You're churning through these tickets. People are angry. They're yelling at you. You have to get up to speed on, changing FAQs and different regulations and things. It's a difficult job. I don't think that should be underestimated. And so anything we can do to diffuse the situation, ideally completely resolve the call without having to get to a person. But when you do speak to a person, it's a bit of an elevated experience for the agent, and hopefully a good experience for the caller as well. And something surprising that I heard is we just had our customer conference in Nashville last week, and this was actually very heartening. So when Replicant was deployed in a particular customer's contact center, the disability days that their agents were taking dropped by 70%. So fewer people are sick on the job when they had Replicant to sort of be that front line of the tier 1 customer service calls. And I don't think we can take credit for all of that improvement, but it really just goes to show you that when you shift from how many tickets can I answer in an hour to, hey, how do I build a relationship with this person on the phone and kind of understand and solve their problem, it's a real elevation of the role.
That's crazy. It's like, that brings up the question, is the job causing their sickness because it's so much stress, or they just hate the job and they're not showing up and calling in sick? So but that's eye-opening there. What about, like, so when Replicant call, how does it work? Like, if someone's using Replicant for their call center, when the phone call starts, is there some kind of like cue to the person on the other end that they're AI artificially created voice, or how does that work? And then does the call just start? Like, do the people, who's ever answering the phone, know that it's AI that's talking to them? I guess is the heart of the question.
Yeah, ethics has been a big concern of mine since the beginning. I did not want to create a technology that was going to be doing this the way I saw a lot of companies were doing it when we began, which is, I think, the wrong way, being disingenuous to callers. I think one of the early demos I saw of Dialogflow and Google calling was not identifying itself as a machine. It was using dialogue covers. It would put the ums and the ahs and the disfluencies and that click-clack typing noise in the background. They were doing everything that they could to keep the caller from understanding that, hey, this is a machine. And I think it's a lie. I think it's a little disingenuous. I think there should be ample disclosure that you're speaking with a machine. And so every time we get on the phone, it's, hi, thanks for calling AAA. I'm a thinking machine on a recorded line. And so, we're always disclosing ourselves as the thinking machine. And that's, it can be confusing, I think, for people. They're like, wait, what's a thinking machine? And so we might have a little bit of that conversation, or they might immediately push back and say, hey, there's no way a robot's going to answer my question, like, get me to a person right away. And so we've developed a number of conversation design principles. One of those is, what's in it for me? So when someone says, hey, I got to speak with an agent, it's like, Ryan, I'm happy to get you over to an agent, but it's going to be about a 25-minute hold time. In the meantime, can I get your policy number? And so you're sort of pulling them back into that conversation. You're training them that, hey, I know you've had some really negative experiences with machines in the past, but this is really it's a new generation of this technology, and so give us a chance.
Awesome. Yeah, we interviewed Sales GPT, and they're doing something very similar, but they're doing it for sales calls.
Yes.
Like they have automated calls that call out to people, and they do the same thing. Right when they start their call, they say, "Okay, we're an automated call." I don't know what their exact wording is, but thinking machine or artificial intelligence call. They let people know right away. But yeah, I think it seems like the more, and one thing they brought up when we interviewed them is that we're at the beginning of this. So it's going to take some time for people to get used to these calls, and they're going to start to happen all the time. But once people do get used to them, it's like anything with technology. I think, from my end at least, it's going to make life easier. Like I'd rather almost. I think it's going to come to a point where you're going to get a call from an AI phone call, and you're going to be like, "Thank God, I don't want to talk to a human," because chances are they're going to handle it better than a human could. And if they don't handle it better than a human could, we can always escalate it to a human. Maybe if they can't handle it or towards the end of the call. So it's kind of fascinating to see how this is going to all play out.
Yes, yes. I think this brings up a great point of when and how should we use the technology, and how do we know that it's ready? There's a professor out of MIT, Darren Asamoglu, and he's writing a lot about so-so technologies. And so think back on the ATM. The ATM was heralded as the end of the bank teller. This was going to take all the bank tellers' jobs. There was never going to be any bank tellers anymore. It was seen as like a disaster for the banking industry. But what happened? Bank tellers can do more interesting things. They can deal with loans. They can get to know people more. They're not just there dispensing cash, during business hours. And consumers won as well, because they can get I can get money at any time of the day. And so there's sort of like a win-win technology that was able to see a benefit for society and a benefit for the people who are working that job. Contrast that with something that I would say is below the line on a so-so technology, the robots in checkout aisles. It's frustrating. I can never quite get it, to happen properly. It requires babysitting by, a person. So it didn't really remove that job. It just sort of shifted to like an oversight. It was not focused on really resolving that problem of the checkout aisle. It was a kind of short-term cost-cutting measure. And so, yeah, maybe you should save a job or two, but you're not seeing that benefit for the consumer. You're not seeing that benefit from the customer side. And so whenever we're launching a new thinking machine, a new capability, a new product feature, we're always measuring it against, is this technology ready for prime time? Is it something that's going to make the caller's life easier? Or is this going to be a stumbling block or a roadblock in their way?
Yeah, so I want to comment on that. The checkout lines at the stores, so frustrating. I don't understand it.
Awful.
If I'm going to if this is my mini rant, if I'm going to check out by myself, I want to check out by myself. I just wait for the moment. Every single time it happens, I try to scan something, it doesn't work. Now I got to call somebody over. Happens every single time. Very frustrating.
Yes.
But yeah, I wanted to say also the video on your website was helpful for an example. It's about like 1:30 for whoever wants to see it. Just go right to the Replicant website, and you guys have a little demo of like what it sounds like when you're talking to one of these AI entities, and it's very cool, very seamless.
Yeah, since the beginning, we've been really focused on listening, thinking, and speaking. Like when we're doing transcription, not only the words that people are saying, but understanding like the vernacular that people are using. In West Virginia, they're not going to speak like people do in California. In Detroit, they're not going to use the turns of phrase that people do in New Orleans or in LA. And so transcription has always been sort of like a key focus for ours, that we want to understand everybody equitably, not just people who sound like me or use the words that I do. On the thinking side, I think that we should really be doing the heavy lifting from the caller. And so, I've seen some technologies where it's, imagine you're doing a hotel room booking. And how many adults will that be? 2 adults. I got 2 adults, is that right? Yes. And how many children will that be? 1 child. It's such a long and kind of clunky conversation. And so being able to level that up, powered in large part by large language models, to say, hey, it's going to be me and my hubby and my 9-month-old, and understanding that that's 2 adults and 1 child. It's this kind of contextual reasoning that really elevates the conversation. So that's on the thinking piece. And then on speaking, the quality of the voice really does matter. We will always be upfront that you're speaking with a machine, but the better that machine sounds, the more willing people are to give it a chance. If it sounds like a robot, doesn't matter if it's the smartest robot you've ever spoken to before, people are going to escalate, people are going to press 0. It's just too easy for them to say, you know what, I've been burned by technologies like this before. I'm not going to give it a chance.
Yeah, like you said, it's like when you release the software, it's sort of got to be ready for prime time. Otherwise, it can bite you in the, bite you, and nobody's going to use it again, or they're just going to store
Oh
it.
yeah, or I'm shopping for a like a shovel, and then it tells me that I might be in a loveless marriage and I should leave my wife. I mean, some of these early experiences with large language models, I think there was a kind of a rush to get it out into the market, and also a misunderstanding of the guardrails, or perhaps lack of guardrails, that some of these companies put in place.
So you mentioned LLMs. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you're using? Where are they pulling the data from? Is that how do you help prevent hallucinations? Can you just talk to us a little bit about that back-end tech and what that looks like?
Yeah, so we've been using transformers since before they were cool, and it's been a lot of learning from the AI and the ML team over the years. But we used to use a lot of, let's say in 2017, it was like BERT. And so, we were able to do entity extraction, entity linking, intent recognition. So, as opposed to previous keyword matching, where you got to call in and say billing. And if you say, my bill is too high, it says, I sorry, I didn't understand that. And so BERT and that transformer technology really unlocked our ability to do intent-based matching, entity extraction, without having to rely on people saying exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. Now, large language models will just push this forward in a way that, you can get this kind of single turn capture of a lot of different pieces of information. It's going to be me and my hubby and my 9-month-old, and we want to check in on Thursday, and we want to leave 2 Tuesdays from now. And being able to do that kind of like slot filling of all of those different pieces of information, it's a massive time save for callers. On average, when we've put these LLM components into our conversations, it's a 30% reduction in time on the line, which is great for the caller. It's also good for our customers, because they're not, we charge per the minute. So the shorter the calls are, the kind of the cheaper it's going to be for them. And we saw a 10 percentage point improvement, maybe in things like make model collection. So trying to collect, vehicles for AAA on the side of the road, being able to do, collection of complex, pieces of data that you need to get. And the CSAT, the customer satisfaction score, went up because people could really talk in their own voice. You mentioned hallucination. I think that's a really key aspect here. I think the first thing I would do is I would caution people against thinking about large language models as human, or reasoning or thinking in the way that humans do. I would add that they're more than human. They are kind of beyond or different than a human intelligence. And I think that when you think about it in that way, it doesn't prohibit you in the way of thinking where, animals have more than human intelligence. Fungus has more than human intelligence. And until we created the internet, we really didn't understand how do mycelial networks like talk to one another. And so here we have another technology that, even though it presents itself as a friendly agent that you can talk to, like the way that it learns and the way that it thinks, or perhaps interprets the data that it's seen, is kind of not like people. And so hallucination is kind of the name of the game with these technologies. I don't think you can fine tune or reinforcement learn the hallucination out of the system. They choose the next token, and it could be the correct thing or it could be the incorrect thing. But once you've chosen that token, or once the machine has chosen that token, it's going to vehemently defend what it's chosen, even if you tell it that it's kind of wrong. So, in addition to putting guardrails on those language models, I think there's a few ways you can do this. You can constrain the technology so it's only allowed to do certain things. This would be like a make model collection. We'll use the large language model for, it's my 1993 Chrysler Sebring, and then they say, oh, actually it's my 2024 Tesla Model Y. That's really great for the LLM to be able to collect, and you can speak colloquially, and you can do all of these things. But we don't necessarily allow the language model to do any natural language generation. So you kind of you lock down exactly what the LLM can do, and you defer to a dialogue policy, which might be constructed with the customer. You defer to scripts, which can be written with the customer so that they've got it in their own language, in their own tone, and it prevents some of these embarrassing issues that you can imagine where imagine you're calling into an airline and you're complaining about the cost of your bags. And I can imagine the LLM would be like, well, why don't you fly Southwest next time? You get, 2 bags for free. And so it's not always a hallucination. It's not always a dangerous piece of information that's being responded, but it could just be a little bit damaging to the brand, even if it is factual.
Sure. But it sounds like that's going to happen no matter what. It should be it's going to be over time a smaller and smaller percentage of the times it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And you might even see like social media posts on something funny that happens on a phone call, but it's just going to happen and it's eventually going to get better. So you just sort of have to deal with it because it's not human thinking, it's machine thinking, and we don't really fully understand how its capabilities right now and what it's going to do.
Yeah. And my guidance would be, in the face of that uncertainty, it's a little bit difficult if you want to go build these things in-house. You can certainly do it, and you can hook up a raw LLM to your callers, but you're going to have these hallucinations. So then the question becomes, well, what are you going to do about that? And so we've come up with, we've spent so much time thinking about constraining what the LLM can do, coming up with dialogue policies, grounding the LLM in could be FAQs for a customer. It could be logged in data for a customer. Hey, why did my bill go up this month? And so, you could compare this month's bill to last month's bill. And then we're also building ancillary models that are looking at the output of the large language model, and then in parallel saying, that looks like a malicious query, or hey, that looks like something that's not factual, or hey, that looks like something that is not befitting for the brand guidelines that the customer wants. So it's possible that that someone could go and build all of these pieces, but it's a heavy lift, and it's something that I don't know if all of the LLM companies are being that kind of honest about. It might work in the ideal case, but the failure modes are quite numerous.
Yeah. So for example, say if I'm talking to an AI customer agent and I start swearing at them, telling them they suck or something like that, how do you guys respond to those situations?
Well, it really depends on the situation. We work with a number of trucking companies, in addition to, AAAs. And so with trucking companies, I would be surprised if we get through a phone call without a little bit of expletive, it happens. It's the way that some people choose to speak. And so I don't think you can always be so prescriptive as soon as we hear, someone say a certain word, let's go ahead and escalate that call. It's another reason why we really care about the intent behind what's happening on the call, or being able to, if we got all of the entities and, they put an F-bomb in front of it, let's just go ahead and continue with the call, because really that person, even though they're frustrated, and we know they're if you've gotten to the point where you're calling customer service, you're probably 9 out of 10, you're 90% frustrated already. And so it's okay if you're using the, words like this, as long as we're still pushing the conversation forward. And that's a call that each one of our customers can make, and there's self-service tools that they can use for what do you want to do if this is detected? What do you want to do if the conversation starts to go in these different directions?
Got it. It's almost like de-escalating things is maybe the best practice in those situations.
Yeah.
One of the most frustrating things.
Maybe someone needs to just blow up a little bit. Hey, I feel like I'm not being, I ordered this product, it's not working the way that I want, and I really want to kind of let loose on the company a little bit. But if you can do that to the machine and kind of, guard or shield the agent from having to get the full brunt of their, annoyance, by the time they either completely solve the problem with the machine, or maybe they do get to the agent, they're not quite as riled up as they initially were on the call.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it saves the company too, dealing with the mental health of all their human agents, not having to deal with all that stuff. So that's awesome. I didn't even think about that. One thing that's really annoying when you're talking to customer service is, like you said, if you're making a call to customer service at any company, usually you're at like a 9 out of 10 in terms of frustration. And then you start talking to someone, a human, and they're very nice. You're trying to be polite to them and try to solve your problem. But since you're nice to them, they feel like they can sort of drag this call out for freaking a half hour, whereas you just want to get off the phone and get this problem solved in 5 minutes. So it sounds like that's something you guys can help solve as well.
Yeah, the reason the calls are 30-40% shorter than speaking with a person is I don't think you expect small talk from a robot. I don't think that you might ask it how the weather is and we'd respond to that, but
or just
in
like have fun with it.
In practice, it doesn't really happen. And, you can go to our website. You mentioned that the video is there, but it's also, if you go to try.replicant.com, you can speak with the thinking machine. And it's really interesting to see the way that people talk to the thinking machine when they've actually got a problem versus the way that they talk to it from trying it out or being at kind of like the top of the funnel if it comes to buying. I think there's a little bit of like, well, let me try to throw the entire kitchen sink at this, machine, and what's it going to do when I bring up, whether you like the president or not? What's it going to do when you bring up, cultural issues? In practice, we never really see that on phone calls. I mean, people, they just want to get in and they just want to get out and kind of go on with their way. And it's a little bit of like when Amazon was in the early days, and people were like, "Well, don't you want to smell the books?" And it's like, yeah, you might want to have that book reading experience some of the time, but most of the time with customer service, it's very transactional.
In terms of, so you guys have been around for quite a while. When did Replicant start, and when did you start offering the product, your customer service AI product?
Yeah, we began in 2017, and it really was a lot of research. It was kind of foundational blue sky research into listening, thinking, and speaking. What should the conversation design look like? What are the tools that you want to use to build this? I think an early observation I had was that in order to craft these interactive voice response systems, IVR systems, that's where you're pressing 1 for this and pressing 2 for that. And sometimes they talk and sometimes they don't. They've been around for a long time. But to make that, it was all XML. And so you had to be a programmer in order to make this stuff. And so is it any wonder that you ended up with press 1 for this and press 2 for that and press 3 for this? It sounds like a mathematician made this kind of technology. So if you can make something that's graphical, I used to work on graphical programming languages for teaching children or teaching maybe your parents how to code, and so pulled a lot from those graphical programming tools. App Inventor is one that has been released from MIT. That was an early project that I worked on, but we brought in a lot of that graphical programming tooling into how you would make the thinking machine, and it was a really fun time to not only see technologists play with it, but what will happen when you give this to people who work in contact centers? What will this look like when you give it to their supervisors? What about when you give it to, the CFO in a company? It becomes understandable. It becomes something that you feel like you can actually impact and change, rather than the kind of, inscrutable XML that is not only hard to understand, but it's hard to program. I mean, imagine making if statements and while loops and all of this in an XML document. It's just hard to do. And so a lot of those early days of research was can we make this fast enough? Can we make it smart enough? Can we make it sound good enough? Can we create the tooling that will be really intuitive for people to use? And then, it's really only been 3 years that we've been, selling the product. Some of our earliest customers were, as I mentioned, like DoorDash, Postmates doing the food ordering, expanded into Because Market. That's where they sell products to older folks. And so maybe you're calling in about incontinence products, maybe you're calling in about, CBD topical ointments, things like this. But that was another challenge for us because we're working with an older population. And so, will the technology that we built for restaurateurs also work for folks who are a little bit older that need us to speak a little bit slower, that might need us to repeat ourselves? And it really worked with flying colors. I think the ability of the machine to be very persistent, it'll repeat something as many times as you want. It's happy to stay on the line there with you. If we're asking for a policy number and you've got to dig it up out of a physical piece of paper that's upstairs in your filing cabinet, we'll just stay there on the line with you, where I don't know if an agent is necessarily going to want to expend that amount of time, because again, in that older model, they're gold. They're sort of paid on how many calls they can get through, and that's sort of an important metric for them.
Yeah, and plus the person that's actually needs the help, he's talking to a human, so he feels bad about taking forever to do something, to find a ID or whatever it might be. So there's that pressure there too, even though you don't even know who this person is. So it's cool.
Yeah, and if you're talking about incontinence products, I mean, I would personally feel more comfortable talking to a machine about that rather than a person. I think it's a little bit easier for me to be honest. It's a little bit easier for me to actually say what's going on, and so that's an element that might play into it as well. People say I'm kind of glad I'm speaking to a machine about this.
Yeah, I can see why. I don't think people are going to realize that until they actually start using it, because the first thing you think about is, I'm talking to a machine. I already talked to recorded voices and people in India. I don't want that. I want a real human. But there's going to come a time where they're going to realize it's actually better to talk to the AI, and I think that's coming soon, which is very cool.
Yeah, I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when we would show this to people, they would say, "No way, this is real." We think your videos are fake. We think your demo is fake. Like there must be, a person hiding inside the machine somewhere, kind of coming up with these answers. But since OpenAI put ChatGPT into the hands of 100 million people very quickly, I think it became obvious that this is a technology that is here, is only going to get better, and you probably need to put some serious guardrails on this, because I think everyone's probably dealt with a hallucination or something that feels inaccurate. And that's great if you're writing a novel, or you want this to be kind of a writing partner for you, or you're playing a game and you want kind of a lot of creativity. But in the customer service space, I think you want factuality, and you want to be grounded in truth.
You brought up like when OpenAI came out, which like the AI hit the scene in about late 2022 is when it got really popular, at least with the general public. How
Yes.
did that change the world for you guys? Because you've been in the game since 2017. You said you released your product 3 years ago. How did that technology change the technology that you're using to do all this at Replicant?
I'm glad that it showed people that this is a technology that's kind of here and is ready to be used. I think it like changed people's mind, which is, to your point earlier, it's convincing people that maybe they should hang in there and talk with the machine, because this is this kind of new batch of technology that's not like what we had in the mid 2010s. It's not like what we had in the early 2000s. It's definitely not what we had in the kind of voice synthesis of the 90s. And so it's changing people's minds, which is great. And there's kind of a rising tide that's lifting all boats. But being able to understand how and when and really if you should put these LLM tools into particular turns. It could be data collection, like I mentioned before. It could be summarization for the handoff of the call. Imagine I have a whole conversation with the machine, and then, well, I've got to escalate that over to Ryan, the agent. Let's generate a quick summary. Let's even come up with the first line that the agent can say, so that it gives you a little bit of cover while you say, okay, it's Benjamin, and he's authenticated, and he's on the side of the road, and here's some pictures of his car. So that's another place where we can kind of use LLMs to level us up. It's also changing the quality of the voice, and the kind of realness that we can put into the thinking machine, even if we are telling people that they are talking to a robot.
All right, awesome. And what can you get into? I mean, feel free to tell us as much as you want or as little as you want. But what's the actual technology you're using right now? Like, how do you generate the voice? What LLMs are you using? Things like that. And if you can't let us know, we understand. But that's my question.
Yeah, I think our thesis from the beginning is that technology is going to progress quite quickly. And so it may be technology that we use in-house. It may be technology that's coming from a third party. It may be technology that becomes kind of, ubiquitous, like transcription. I think Google will give you transcription, and Azure will give you transcription. And we did understand and do understand the right turns to use the right providers. Google, because of Google Maps, very, very good at collecting addresses. And so they're, quite good in that realm. When it comes to alphanumeric collection, that's, hey, my policy number is X as in X-ray, Z as in zebra, 7552. Google's not good at this, Azure's not good at this, Whisper's not good at this. It's just, it's a difficult problem to solve. And so for that piece, we built our transcription in-house so that we could, understand the words that are being spoken, but then think about it to know, X as in X-ray is not double X, but that's just one, X there. And so it could be alphanumeric data collection. It could be email address collection. That's something else that we're quite good at. And that's hard to do. If I asked you for your email address, I might need you to repeat it a couple times. It's kind of a hard thing to get across. There were some other early models we made. We worked with Hawaiian Telecom, so a telecom company out of Hawaii. And we're getting people who are calling in with names that don't sound like mine. And so the standard transcription providers, again, they're a little bit biased toward the data that was used to train that model. And so being able to do phoneme-based matching of names, even for my name, I'll call anytime I'm talking to an AI system and they say, "What's your name?" I say, "It's Gleitzman." And usually what I'm getting is, "It doesn't appear that you're talking to me." And like, what a rude thing to say to a person. It's like, I've just told you my name and you're going to tell me that, I'm not, you haven't understood what I've said. And so we build a lot of models in-house to make sure that we can nail that and like get that, done properly. So the keys, I think, are in each turn of the conversation, knowing which providers to use. Could be third-party providers, could be in-house providers for transcription, for intent and entity recognition, entity linking, whether or not we're going to call out to like an LLM model, and then choosing what voice we're going to use to synthesize it. Another key point here about LLMs is that they're not HIPAA compliant. They're not PCI compliant. And I expect that we'll be able to get there, but there's a lot of turns that might have, personally identifying information, credit card numbers, things like this. No way we're going to pass that to an LLM, even if we have data redaction, policies in place so that they don't use it for training. It's just, it's not something that we can actually pass, legally to these systems. So we still use a lot of our in-house models for those things. And you can also imagine that we might use multiple providers. What if we use multiple transcription providers at once? We'll use our in-house and we'll use, Azure. And then over time, we'll learn sort of which turns are more, kind of high value for us, which ones, do we mostly get the right thing on the right turn. So it's quite a complex system, but I think the key is being like malleable and able to swap in new technologies as they come, because if you're keeping up with the papers every week and every day is just like massive gains in this industry. And, it reminds me a little bit, I was young, but like the newness of the internet, the kind of like, how quick features were coming out and how rapid the evolution was. It's an exciting time, but it's a time when having a really strong ethics grounding and having a really strong like security, how are we going to make sure that we keep these things on track? How are we going to make sure that we can responsibly, manage data is really key.
So what is the next step in your development, and where do you see your project going in like maybe 5 years, 10 years?
When you think about contact center automation, the contact center is quite big. And this was actually an issue for us in the early days. We'd say we build conversational AI. And conversational AI is so broad. It could be analyzing what agents do and giving them recommendations not in real time. It could be, churning through emails and being, able to respond to those. It could be things like we do, which is kind of, voice or SMS or, chat on websites. And so contact center automation has a lot of additional pieces to it. It's got that agent handoff and making sure that that's really solid so that you don't have to repeat yourself and kind of re-authenticate. It's got knowledge base kind of agent assists for agents as well. Maybe you're new on the job, and so you want to get some FAQs, or you want to get some recommendations from the machine of what might the customer be calling about, or what are some ways that you can kind of answer their question. I think it comes into like workforce management and how are you routing particular calls to the right individual. And so there are many players that are in this market, the Five9s of the world, the Genesis of the world. They've built these technologies, but they haven't built them in a way that's kind of modern facing and not that is, powered by AI from the start. And so the big shift I see in the industry is Genesis is charging per seat. So they're saying, how many agents do you have in your contact center? Your cost will be number of agents times, some amount of money that they're charging per month. The future of the contact center, it's not 90% agents and 10% AI. I think it's 90% AI and 10% agents who are there to like give that empathy or to give that creativity. And so it really flips that whole business model on its head. And so you've got a little bit of an innovator's dilemma when it comes to these legacy providers who need to move away from the, towards AI, which is moving quite rapidly, but they're stuck a little bit in that per seat model. And so that's something that I get excited about thinking about the future of like, how do you transform the entire experience before the call is made, during the call, after the call, the kind of data and analytics that you can like gather from that. It really is an underserved market. I feel bad for folks that have been in this industry since the 80s and 90s because they've been sold technology that was supposed to make their life better for a really long time. Hey, I've got an IVR touch tone system. You can't wait to see how this is going to change your life. And then, hey, we've got an IVR touchstone system, but now you can say billing to it. Like, you can't believe how this is going to change your life. And it just hasn't had the benefits. It haven't had the improvements that were promised. But now I think we're finally to a point where you can get end-to-end resolution using an automated system that's going to be faster than talking with a person, better informed perhaps than that person too, and the caller experience is going to be really quality. So people are going to ask for these machines.
It's fun talking to people in the AI space, because when we talk to them, all these ideas pop in my head, at least, of like what can actually happen with these tools that are coming out. And one of the things that's maybe that will happen with these phone calls is one of the stories that we did was on how AI can listen to someone's voice and tell if they're under duress or they have anxiety, depression, something like that. So I'm thinking maybe when the AI is talking to the customer and the customer's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. This is all good. Thank you for taking care of me." The AI can subtly understand if they're really saying that just to say it, or they still haven't had their issue resolved. And then you guys could follow up with them with a phone call or an email or something like that. Like, there's so many opportunities out there that seems like that's something that could eventually happen.
Yeah, it's a promising future, but I sometimes caution against using, like, is there really a problem there? And one example I'll give is roadside service. So we get a lot of people calling in on the roadside. They're anxious. They're nervous. We know that they're on the side of the road and they're, in danger.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to kind of like read the tone of their voice. They'll probably tell you, kind of the information that they need. It's a little bit like the truckers and profanity.
Yeah.
It's like, just because it's there doesn't mean you have to act on it. And I think that's another kind of key. It's a key thing to consider when you deploy AI. I think about Twitter for, I don't know how long it was, months or years, would crop photos to find faces. And so you'd upload a photo and it would crop it in the preview to find a face. Well, it cropped white faces more than black faces. It cropped people who were standing rather than people who were sitting in wheelchairs. And so the decision was made by that team to not use the AI anymore for photo cropping. And you have to kind of ask, well, was that even a problem in the first place? And you got these ancillary folks who were excited about it as well. Photographers who spend like painstaking effort to like crop the photo in the way they want were like, thank you so much for not recropping my photos. I don't even like want this. And so it could be things like analyzing stress and voice, which could be useful in certain situations. It could be voice as a password, which I think is very dangerous. We're in the industry of synthesizing voice. I know how easy it is to synthesize voice based on a snippet. I don't know if it's necessarily safe to use voice as a password. It might be a username. You could say, hey, when you hear my voice, that's probably Benjamin's username, but you don't necessarily have authorization to do things on my behalf just because if you can synthesize my voice. So choosing what and what not to do with these technologies is important.
It's all a big trial, right? Like, people are going to screw up.
Yes.
They're going to try something. They're going to mess it up. There's going to be bad publicity about it, but that's just part of the game with technology. Like, you got to go through those growing pains.
Yeah, and it's a real, I think it's a challenge, and it's heartening to me to think about it is the people who work in these industries that will be the choosers of whether to use this technology or not. I don't think the regulation is necessarily going to come from the government, or it may not look the way that we want. I don't know if it's going to come from, the CEOs of companies. I think it's going to be the kind of rank and file employees that look at the ways that we're rolling out AI and either say, yes, this is something I feel comfortable doing, or no, I don't, and trying to work within their companies to either not deploy technologies when it, is an example like the cropping of photos, or choosing, how and when it's used to make it more ethical.
Benjamin, who's using Replicant right now? Do you have like a count on how many companies are using it, or like what types of companies are more attracted to your technology?
Yeah, it's mostly in the enterprise. We have like tens of customers, and so that's really exciting. Kind of more joining every year. I would say industries like insurance are really big for us. Food ordering, starting to get into more retail customers. We've avoided places like financial services just because there's a lot of regulation that comes with, dealing with banks. Also, the sales cycle on banks is quite long. I could see us moving, there now that we've got our GDPR certification. That was quite a large lift for us, and so excited about moving into, more areas where this can be used. But what's surprising to me is across industries, people say we work with, let's say, pest control companies. So, this is actually a really great usage for LLMs. Like, I got scorpions in the den again, and kind of understanding, what you got and where you got and all these kind of problems. But they say, well, how many pest control companies have you worked with before? And at the end of the day, people are people. They talk mostly in the same way. The same kind of problems we had to solve with food ordering kind of come back when it's pest control or insurance use cases. And so now, having done a couple 100 million calls, we've really got the data sets. We've got kind of the understanding of not only how most people talk, but also how do we deal with folks who might have a particular accent, who deal with English as a second language. And so the time it takes to bring on a new industry is not really so high, because all of the conversational smarts are kind of built into the system. So you really just focus on like where is my industry different, and what are those kind of like jargon keywords, and is there anything scheduling a pest control appointment looks like scheduling a dentist appointment, looks like scheduling an MRI, just swapping out those kind of back end APIs.
And then in terms of, have you like seen any kind of general percentage, like from the companies you've worked with that use your product? Do they say, hey, this has saved us 50% of our cost to pay a human to do the same job? Is there any kind of benchmark there that you've seen from your customers?
Yeah, I think the metrics that move are, one use case might be a customer who does, imagine you move to a new location, but you got to send back your Comcast modem or something like that. And so they're in the business of like reclaiming these modems that people can't even use anymore. You gotta send it in. And so it's usually an outbound call or an SMS or something like this that's going to the person in order to get them to send these back in. When they brought in Replicant, it was like a drastic savings, millions of dollars of savings of cost, something that they really couldn't even reach the number of people that they needed to, because there just weren't enough agents to call all the people that had to return these modems. It was a big win for the customer, the callers into the customer as well, because they don't want to be charged $85 or $110 for this modem. They're not going to use it. So it was like a reminder. It's saving the money to come back in. And the return rates went up. I think it was like an 11% increase in returns. And so it's very rare. I've certainly never worked at a company before where it's higher customer satisfaction, it's higher kind of bottom line KPIs and metrics like returns. You save a couple $1 million, and the agents in the contact center get happy. It's like it's really it's really exciting to see, and kind of heartening to see that there's not. I think in business, at least for me, you're looking for the trade-off. We saved money, but people were angrier. We made the agent experience better, but we had to spend a lot more money on it. It's like rare to see when you can move all of these metrics in the correct direction, but you don't really have to have a downside.
It's almost like your biggest problem is the sales end, right? Like I think this can solve a huge problem for a lot of people, but people are scared to use it. And once their eyes are opened up a little bit, I think a lot of people are going to be reaching out to you guys to implement something like this on their end.
Yeah, I think the message is that the time is now. There's going to be this, I would call it like a K-shaped recovery, where the people who choose to use AI now are just going to continue to get better and better and better at that technology. And the people who delay are going to kind of fall further and further behind. And so it's not just bringing in this technology, it's getting your own data in order. We can tap into any knowledge base, we can tap into any FAQ, but if your FAQs disagree with one another, or they're not kept up to date, then that's going to be a problem for the machine, in the same way that it's probably a problem for your agents. But maybe sure. A seasoned agent is going to be like, oh yeah, well, I read that document, but it's not right, that you got to do the other thing over here. And so there's kind of, in addition to bringing in this technology, there's a little bit of improvement you need to make within the organization of getting knowledge bases up and running, making sure that you've got API access. We want to do everything that an agent can do, but if you don't have an API for it, then it becomes difficult for us to do. So sometimes we work with RPA or, like other technologies that can get us access to those APIs. But yeah, I think if the question was, should I wait for next year's GPT model, or should I go and start to do this today? I think now is the time to really move.
Definitely. And if you're unsure, just take a look at their replicant.com and look at their website in the video. I mean, it's pretty stunning what can be done right this second. Like for something like customer service and these calls, it's awesome. Like you got to check it out.
Yeah, and I would also say that a lot of customers I talk to say, well, let's run a POC. Let's run like a trial of this. And the problem with running POCs is that it's kind of the same lift to do a POC as it is to do like an actual deployment. It's not like we can cut corners, because you got to make sure that the conversation design is there. You got to make sure that the APIs are in place. And when you're running a POC, I think you're often looking for like, well, this didn't quite work and that didn't quite work. And so you're coming up with reasons to not quite take the plunge. And so regardless of the vendor that you go with, I think choosing to kind of do something fully, and you don't have to redo your whole, contact center. You can say, hey, we're going to take digit press number 4 off our IVR and like just do billing. Or we're going to take digit press number 2 and just do returns. Take the plunge, jump in, start to understand what this technology is good for, and you're going to be part of the people who are getting richer using this technology, rather than those that kind of delayed and fall behind.
What would you like to promote, Benjamin? I know replicant.com is the main thing, but anything else that you want to put out there? We'll put all the links in the comments below.
Yeah, I think replicant.com is a great place to go to. You go to try.replicant.com to give the thinking machine a spin. We can put my email out there if people want to get in touch. I'm happy to talk about the technology, how it's used. I also really care about the ethics that are behind it, and so that's kind of a big piece for me. And there's a lot of, we just had our Resolve conference, and so we're doing Resolve Rewind, which will be some videos from that. We have a lot of great speakers. It's not just salespeople talking from Replicant. It's like actual people who have used the technology talking about, how and why and sort of where they used it. And, hopefully we can kind of lift this industry up together. Something that surprised me is that, in the contact center, you can still be, working a phone, and then you become a manager, and then you become the head of it's like you can still kind of move up through that organization. And so the people really matter. The people that kind of stick with the organization are really important. So being able to hear from those experts and being able to hear from people who've already taken the plunge is great.
Cool. And then be sure to subscribe to Ryan and I's newsletter, fry-ai.com. We have 3 top stories a day, along with some cool tools and community engagement things as well. Just thank you so much, Benjamin, for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Great questions and really enlightening.